30%. 30% cheaper meats, 30% cheaper produce, 30% cheaper eggs, milk, bread, seafood. That sounds absolutely phenomenal. That sounds like exactly what working families need right here, right now, in this very moment. But here's the thing. New York City is not forcing grocery companies to lower their prices. The government is spending public money to establish 5 city-owned grocery stores and subsidize selected products. So, groceries may be cheaper when you reach the register, but did the actual cost disappear? Or did the government simply move part of the bill from your shopping cart to your taxes, to your tax bill? And before someone in Los Angeles decides that we need to copy this program, we need to ask 3 simple questions. Who pays for the discount? What happens to the neighborhood grocery stores expected to compete against the government? And will this program actually feed struggling families or merely create another expensive government operation? Let's get into it. Welcome back to Wolf Kage Los Angeles. So, New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani has announced that 5 planned municipal grocery stores will offer a basket of essential products at prices approximately 30% below typical retail prices. That basket is expected to include fresh produce, meat, seafood, milk, eggs, bread, and approximately 20 other categories of everyday products. The city has allocated approximately $70 million in capital funding for the 5 locations. Private companies will operate the stores, but the city will provide the properties and cover major overhead expenses such as rent and construction. The first location is expected to open late 2027. So this is currently a proposal, not a functioning chain of stores with a proven track record. And although this is happening in New York, Los Angeles needs to pay attention, because if this program becomes politically popular, you already know that cities across California will start asking whether they should do the same thing.
Today, I am proud to announce a collection of essential staples that will be predictably 30% cheaper at all 5 of our city-run grocery stores.
Okay, Zohran Mamdani taking his new city-run grocery stores a step further. He promised yesterday that the city-run stores will bring down prices for its customers by implementing that 30% discount on basics like vegetables, meat, bread, and milk.
Mamdani says the discount, calculated monthly, will save New Yorkers about $90 per month.
Let me start by saying something that some critics sometimes refuse to admit. The problem is real. Folks are struggling to afford groceries. I mean, here in the Los Angeles area, grocery store prices were approximately 2.9% higher in June of 2026 than they were 1 year earlier. And a USC study found that approximately 24% of Los Angeles County households experience food insecurity in 2025. That's approximately 1 out of every 4 households having difficulty consistently affording enough food. So when people hear 30% cheaper groceries, they're not thinking about economic theory. No, they're thinking about whether they can buy meat, whether they can buy vegetables without falling behind on the electric bill. They're thinking about whether they can feed their children without putting the groceries on a credit card. Politically, this is an absolutely brilliant promise because everyone immediately understands the benefit. But a promise is not the same thing as a functioning program. And the first question must be, where does that 30% discount actually come from?
The reason you can't just make it free, like someone has to pay for it, right? Grocery stores are not hoarding some massive amounts of profits. They have very thin profit margins.
According to the conservative critic.
According to everyone.
Whole Foods has a pretty good margin.
Everyone knows this.
Whole Foods has a pretty good margin.
They're offering it at a price. The price is determined by the marketplace, by what they sell it for, what you'll buy it at, where they're still eking out some kind of profit. If a government grocery store is going to come in and sell that at less, that's fine. They're not going to make any profit, whatever, it's the government. But they're going to lose money. So in order to pay for the costs of providing the food, they just need to use more more tax dollars. So the point is, you're paying for these groceries still. Like, they still have to be, like, they don't just magically appear. The labor costs, the cost of purchasing the food to then provide it to you at the grocery store, that all costs money. They're not recouping those costs because they're setting this below what the market sets. So taxpayers are just paying for it. So this
Robbie.
isn't offering people discounted groceries. This is offering people discounted groceries, but then taking more of your tax dollars to pay for it.
This is the most important economic point in the entire conversation. The food still has to be grown. It still has to be transported. Someone still has to unload it, refrigerate it, stock it, protect it from theft, and throw it away when it expires. The employees still have to be paid. The electricity still has to stay on. So when the government sells something below its full operating cost, guess what? The cost does not disappear. No. It is divided between the customer and the taxpayer. Now, supporters would argue that wealthier taxpayers may carry more of that cost while struggling families receive most of the benefit. That is a legitimate political argument. But then we should describe the program honestly. This is not the government magically making groceries cost less to produce. This is a taxpayer-funded transfer designed to make groceries cost less for the person standing at the register. Maybe voters will decide the transfer is worthwhile. But this is the thing. They deserve to know the complete cost before politicians begin advertising the discount, because there's a major difference between reducing a cost and hiding part of the bill somewhere else.
If we're going to do this plan, we might as well just give people more SNAP benefits. That would make more sense than creating a store that's just going to undercut if the problem is people can't afford groceries, then if your government is going to do something, then they should just give money to people who can't afford groceries. Setting up some kind of government-run distribution center is micromanaging the economy and does not work.
This is where the efficiency question comes in. If the goal is to help people who cannot afford food, why would you want to build and maintain an entirely new government grocery system? Why not just increase targeted food assistance? Why not provide grocery credits? Why not expand programs that match CalFresh spending on fruits and vegetables? Why not reduce taxes, permitting expenses, or development barriers for private grocery stores that are willing to open in underserved communities? And here's the other thing. The city-owned stores will offer the 30% discount to everyone, regardless of income. That means a person that's earning, $200,000 a year could receive the same subsidized price as a mother choosing between groceries and rent. A universal discount may be easier to operate and avoids forcing people to prove that they're poor, but it also means taxpayers could be subsidizing customers who don't need assistance. Before Los Angeles even considers something like this, officials should have to compare the cost of a municipal store against the cost of giving assistance directly to households that need it. Do not just show us how much somebody saves at a checkout stand. Show us how much taxpayers spend to produce every dollar of that savings.
Because there's another.
It's government. Government does not provide.
But everyone
more
doesn't have to shop there.
Because the government can confiscate your wealth to cover its losses.
Everyone
so
does not have to shop there.
You can't compete against the government because it can raise your taxes and take more of your money. So you can't offer a service that's competitive with the government when the government has the power to just subsidize its losses endlessly by taking money.
Do you know
your mom and pop store can't do that because they can't just reach into Lindsay's pocket and take more of her money if things aren't working out well. The government can.
Okay.
So there's no competition with the government-run store. The government-run store can operate at a huge loss. In fact, they could make it free. They could make it all free and just operate at a 100% loss and then pay for the things by taking more of your tax dollars. So we're just talking about transferring tax money from one group to another. That's all this is.
This may be the strongest criticism of the entire proposal. A privately owned grocery store has to pay rent. It has to pay property expenses, insurance, labor, security, utilities, and the cost of every product that spoils or even gets stolen. And if that store continuously loses money, it closes. A government-supported store does not operate under the same pressure. The city can provide the building. They can cover certain overhead costs. They can use taxpayer money to maintain lower prices. New York officials say the stores will not sell alcohol. They won't sell cigarettes, lottery tickets, or hot food because those products generate important revenue for bodegas and neighborhood stores. But the municipal stores will still sell meat, produce, dairy, bread, and pantry staples, the products that cause many people to enter the grocery store in the first place. Just for a moment, imagine owning a small neighborhood market and paying thousands of dollars every single month in rent and city expenses. Then, the same city Collecting money from your business opens a competing store nearby, covers that store's property costs, and advertises prices 30% below typical retail prices. That is not normal marketplace competition. That does not automatically mean the program should never exist, but the government cannot pretend that its financial advantage will have no effect on the businesses surrounding it. And if private stores close, residents could eventually become more dependent on the government stores that help displace them. That possibility must be measured, not dismissed.
Part of the reason that poor people eat unhealthy is because they don't have healthy stores around them.
It's not true.
Yes, it is. There's literally research that shows that that's true. Okay. And so that also is going to reduce diet related illnesses by people being around options that are healthy at a lower cost.
Then
they're going to buy these. No, I'm telling you facts. I am. I'm telling you information that exists right now. Just take a quick Google. Anyone can. And talk about how low income communities have poorer health. It's really simple to understand. And so if low income communities now have access to more Whole Foods at a lower cost, they can't afford to go to Whole Foods. So now they have access to those same Whole Foods at a lower cost.
She has somewhat of a legitimate point here. It is true that you cannot tell people to eat healthier while ignoring whether fresh food is affordable and available in their neighborhood. If the nearest affordable option is miles away, transportation becomes a part of the grocery bill. If fresh meat and produce cost considerably more than processed food, families under pressure are going to make decisions based on survival, not somebody else's ideal diet. But placing healthier food inside a government store does not automatically solve poverty, does not automatically solve transportation, personal preference, cooking time, or other reasons people make certain food choices. Access is one part of the problem. Affordability is another part of the problem. Time is another. Education and individual choice are also part of it. Government should make better options accessible without acting as though officials know every household's need better than the people living in that household. A family may need food assistance this month, next month. That same family may need help keeping the electricity on or repairing the car they use to get to work. And that is why direct assistance sometimes provides more flexibility than creating another government institution.
40% of local families struggle to afford food in New York. Do you have a solution for that?
Then give them more money.
Do you have a solution for that? Okay, Mom Donnie has
I just gave you one.
But no one in New York that's been a Republican has implemented solutions that have worked. And so Mom Donnie is trying something, and all I hear is backlash and no other solutions imminently.
So this is where she lands her strongest punch. It's very easy to sit behind a microphone and explain why something might fail, but when people cannot afford food, saying the market will eventually correct itself is not enough. Folks have to eat today. So here would be my proposal. First, run this as a limited pilot, not an ideological revolution. Publish the complete operating budget. Publish the amount of public money attached to every customer's basket. Compare that cost against direct grocery assistance. Measure whether surrounding independent stores lose customers or close. Require an outside audit and include a sunset provision so the program must be reconsidered if it fails to meet clearly defined goals. If it delivers meaningful savings at a reasonable public cost without destroying surrounding businesses, then supporters will have evidence. If it burns through money while politicians continue advertising the 30% discount, taxpayers should be able to end it. That is what accountability looks like. The answer cannot always be government should do nothing, but it also cannot be government tried something, so nobody's allowed to question the bill.
The solution is to loosen zoning regulations so that more people can open up grocery.
In the meantime, people need to eat this year. And Zoran Mamdani is making that so impossible.
But I'm explaining why he's not and why this won't work.
Okay, but you haven't even given it a chance. We tried the federal government's way.
Because the government providing grocery stores will obviously not work because governments can't coordinate these the market, and genuine competition is how messing with prices is a really stupid thing to do economically because prices send signals to consumers about and to producers for what kind of things they should offer.
What about the gas station that we just talked about? What about the gas station that we just talked about?
What?
That's subsidizing the gas prices and
that's not subsidized. That they're doing the gas station of its own volition is running a because it has not because the government is not subsidizing it.
But you didn't mind that. You said setting the price and doing that in any way is messing.
They're setting the price of their own product. That is not the government setting their price. That it is like the fundamental difference. The government should not set prices. Firms set prices, and if their price is wrong, people won't pay it, then they adjust it. That's how the market works. That's how things work. And it works well.
Technically, the city is not ordering every private grocery store to reduce its prices. It's creating a publicly supported alternative and setting prices inside that alternative. That makes this closer to a government-funded public option than a traditional price control law. But the central warning still matters. Prices communicate information. They reflect supply, transportation, labor, spoilage, demand, availability. When politicians select a discount before the stores are even operating, they're making a promise without knowing what the future operating conditions will be. So why exactly 30%? What happens if wholesale prices suddenly rise? What happens when equipment breaks? What happens when labor and security expenses exceed projections? Does the discount shrink? Does the city increase the subsidy? Or does the store begin cutting quality? Does the store begin cutting selection or staffing to preserve the political promise? Those are not attacks on poor people. Those are the basic questions that determine whether this remains an affordability program or becomes an expensive campaign advertisement. Here's my final position on all of this. I do not oppose this proposal simply because Zoran Mandami calls himself a democratic socialist. And I do not support it simply because groceries would be cheaper at the register. The real measurement is not the number written on the shelf. The real measurement is the total cost to the public. How much did each household save? How much does a city spend to create those savings? Who receives the benefit? What happens to nearby stores? Are the shelves constantly stocked? Is the food good? And does this approach help more people than simply providing targeted assistance? If the program passes those tests, then it deserves a fair evaluation. But Los Angeles should not copy a slogan. Los Angeles already has a history of announcing compassionate programs, spending enormous amounts of taxpayer money, and then treating questions about results as though questions themselves are offensive. We cannot do that again. 30% off sounds wonderful, but before celebrating, we have to ask, 30% off for the customer and how much more for the taxpayer? Would you shop at a city-owned grocery store if the essential products were 30% cheaper, even knowing that taxpayers were covering part of the cost? Or do you believe that the government should provide assistance directly and allow people to choose where they shop? Put your answers in the comments below and tell me whether you think Los Angeles should ever attempt something like this. I'm Wolf Kage, and this is Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Until the next time, stay informed, stay involved, and always follow the money.